a 3-hour lecture course at John Marshall in counseling and negotiations. And I tell my students the very first night that the most important lecture ever given in the history of the world, namely the Sermon on the Mount, took all of about 5.5, 6.5 minutes. And that when they do become lawyers and they're in front of a jury, they need to remember that jury has a 13-minute span of attention. Okay, so they win or they lose their case in 13 minutes. Why they would ever sit there for 3 hours and listen to me, you know? So I tell them, you know, if you finish this job before I finish mine, go ahead. You know, same with you. I'm here to give a talk about what happened to me. Still blows my mind, completely blows my mind. Where to start? Diane wanted me to tell you a little bit about where I was raised and everything before the experience. Okay, great, here it goes. Childhood privilege, raised at 1174 Tower Road in Winnetka. Father was a brigadier general in the United States Air Force Reserve, running the guard unit at O'Hare, and a full-time patent attorney who ended up owning the firm, and who was appointed by President Nixon in 1972 as the Chief Judge of the Court of Customs and Patent Appeals. He later combined that with the Court of Claims to form the United States Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, which handles Supreme Court level disagreements regarding trademark, copyright, patents, etc. He spent 19 years on the federal bench, was the most prolific of all judges. He was an amazing guy. I was born in Maywood. We moved to Tower Road when I was 4. I went to Sacred Heart Grammar School and Loyola Academy. Graduated in 1968, won city championship 65 and 66. Thank you very much. Glory days, boy. Glory days. Went to the Air Force Academy Prep School for redshirting, and then Xavier University in Ohio, which was the only one to accept me fast enough before they sent me to Nam. So I could avoid that, thank God. I was the president of the freshman class at Xavier and helped lead the march against the war. Then my high school football coach approached me and said he was the new coach at Loyola University's club football team, Loyola University of Chicago, and would I come play for him? I said, sure. So I went to play for him, and I was his most valuable player 2 years in a row. And the last year we were 9-1-1, which was the best collegiate record in the state, and we were threatening. Who's the coach that brought the Loyola Ireland? Mrs. Ireland was very threatened by the football team because she thought that Loyola University of Chicago should only have her husband's legacy to remember in athletics. Yeah. Oh, and we had to play at Angel Guardian Orphanage, taking showers like this. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Glory days. Leaving behind us. Okay. I was a psychiatric social worker for 19 years. I sold and leased industrial real estate for 7 years. And in 1992, following, I have a horrible health history for hearts in my family. My mother was born with a hole in the ventricles between the left and the right ventricle. I had to have those combined. My brother was born with an enlarged heart. We got lousy hearts, is the bottom line. And in 1992, I had 2 angioplasties because my arteries were clogging up. Of course, at the same time, I was the international vice president of the Death by Cheeseburgers Club. That certainly had nothing to do with it, of course. Anybody ready to go to Hackney's Unharmed? Oh, God. And the onion rings, too. So anyway, so I'm laying there in the bed in 92 with the angioplasties, and I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do with my life, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't have to have a midlife crisis to go to law school at the age of 42, but it helps. I went to law school 4 years at night while working during the daytime. We sold our house, moved to a townhome. You had to go outside to change your mind. Yeah, so I became a lawyer. And I got hired by Michael Caulfield, who used to have a firm called Caulfield, Reddy and Harris. Built it up to 90 partners, left over a dispute with the top partners, and took me as his only associate. Did 176 cases in 10 years, and tried 2 of them. The rest were all settled, which is what I believe lawyers are supposed to do. And then Michael died. So I went to another firm, and it was closer into the loop. We were up on Wacker Drive, East Wacker, and this was more in the center loop. And ironically, this all began by me trying to join the health club in the building there. You know, get healthy, yeah. Sweat, yeah. Like the old days, yeah. Find 10 other guys in a walking sled and lose the weight. All right. So before I could join the health club, I had to have a bill of a letter from my doctor saying I was fine. So I went to see the doctor, and the doctor said, Chris, you've had 2 stress tests in 9 years. Guess what? You're supposed to have them every other year. So get the stress test organized. You pass the stress test, I'll sign for your health club membership. Well, I went to do the stress test. Sad. Sad, sad. The guys say, look, good news and bad news. The good news is no more angioplasties. The bad news is we got to do a triple bypass. And we got to do it within the next 10 days. So October 9th of 2006, I went in for my triple bypass. The next morning at 8:15 and again at 10:15 a.m., I died. According to my son, the first time I died, I was gone 6.5 minutes, and the second time, almost 14 minutes. But that's okay, because there's no time in heaven. Absolutely no time on the other side. No such thing as time. Bizarre how much time runs our lives, but just get rid of the entire concept of time. See if you can, because there is none there. Maybe that's why it's eternity. I don't know. But why would eternity care about time? Right? No such thing. Oh, also no climate. Absolutely no climate. Everybody's naked, and there are no sexual characteristics at all. None. You know the women from the men by face and hair and glowingness. Everybody glowing. Phenomenal. Absolutely beautiful. Handsome beyond compare. Drop dead gorgeous. Of course, you're already dead, so. All right, I go too far. I go too far. The 8:15 a.m. death was because the triple bypass didn't take. By 10 o'clock, they were able to pry my surgeon away from his most recent stream of bodies and bring him to me. And he was not very believing that he had made a mistake. And so, well, I mean, these are brilliant men. He is a brilliant man and a wonderful man. And no, I didn't sue him. Even though I'm only his second one like this in 26 years. He lifted me up by the shoulder blades and put his 4 fingers in the sternal incision, which pressure goes from here to here. And said, give me a good cough. And I gave him such a good cough, I killed myself. Hey, gone. Wow. One more time. Just... And at some point, I heard him say, ah, shit, let's re-crack him. Thanks, Doc. Yeah, that's when you feel a little bit like a lobster, you know? Right down the center. All right. So, what happened? The first thing that I remember seeing was this really extraordinarily ugly purple paisley satin liner of the lid of my coffin. Knew it was my coffin, knew I was dead. Death is instantaneous, beyond instantaneous. It's so fast. I keep trying to think of ways to describe it or terms to describe it, and I really can't come up with it. It's so quick and so final. You know it. I used to have in college I had a philosophy professor that used to use capital B being, it was Martin Heidegger, I think it was, I was studying. He said capital B being and small b being. You know, capital B being is God, and small b being is just being. Anyway, you have a capital K knowing that you're dead. Okay? There's no sadness about it. There's no pain whatsoever. There's no time. You are just... That's it. Faster than that. Faster than light fills a room. Faster than the top of the switch is going to hit the light to go through the room. You're already gone. At least that, you know, I can only say what happened for me. Maybe people will linger. I don't know. I sat at my father's deathbed for 9 hours of a death rattle before he left. And you know, if you've ever heard a death rattle, it really looks like it hurts. But I had no pain whatsoever. Death had no pain. And so I have no fear of death anymore, at all. In fact, I'm kind of looking forward to it next time. So, the paisley lid of the coffin. And I was aware I was lifting up from the coffin. I was leaving the coffin. And there was a presence. Any of you been married long enough that...
Go ahead.
No, it's just, you know, that you know, I mean, you'll be semi-asleep and the other person will kind of roll over and you know, you wake up, you're aware of that presence, you know. And maybe you wake up all the way and it's a joyous event. Other times you go right back to sleep and nothing really occurs. Okay, so let's get back to that point. I'm lifting. There's a presence. The presence does not have a face or a body or wings or any of that stuff, but it has a voice. And the voice said, "Chris, people call me Gabe."
Oh, cool.
Gabriel. People call me Gabe. And all I can tell you, Chris, is that you got more work to do. And he repeated this 3 more times as we floated up toward the light, which was at the top of the tunnel or whatever it was we were in. I thought I was buried 600 yards deep. That's what I thought, because as we kept going, there was mud and tree roots and more tree roots and so on going by us. And we just kept lifting and lifting and lifting and lifting, and he was there the whole time. I know he was pulling me up or pushing from behind or something. I didn't feel anything, but we were lifting. And like I say, 3 more times he says, "All I can tell you, Chris, you have more work to do. By the way, I know in the depth of my soul that part of the work I have to do is share it. Is share the story. That's what brings me here today." Okay, so we're lifting. Off we go. We arrive in a room that I would say is maybe half again as large as this one. So maybe a whole third section over here. Flat, it has a floor. It has walls, like 5 or 6 sections of walls. No ceiling. The light is sustaining. You don't swallow it. You don't digest it. You don't even really feel the warmth of it. Of course, you don't have any clothes on, so I would imagine you would feel it if you could feel it, but you don't. You know it sustains you. You know the light can be relied on. The light is a gift. The light is loving you. The light is all around you. I was welcomed by between 250, 300 people, men and women, everyone more gorgeous than the other, all of them clapping and laughing. Every one of them hugged me. Every one of them, a number of them were crying when they hugged me, men and women. I have never in my life been loved so much. Never in my life was I so welcome. Not even when I came in with like a Heineken draft barrel, you know? I jest. It was the most extraordinary welcome. I still remember it. Ecstasy. It was just ecstatic. They were so happy to see me. And of course, you know, I haven't done that much to be so happy about, but they didn't think so. Okay. So, let's see, we talked about time, we talked about death being fast, we talked about the light. Let's talk about the life review. You're sitting on a table, sort of like an examining table, nothing real fancy, no steps to it, no things coming out either side or whatever, but you're sitting there. Oh, forgot to say, way back off in the distance, way off in the clouds and in the distance, but still within the light, was a mountain. Very tall, pointed mountain. And on the top of the very top of the mountain stood a Syrian desert man who looked exactly like Jesus and was Jesus, because the mountain was striated by roads going up to the top. And there were so many people going up and so many people coming down. The whole mountain was fuzzy. The whole mountain looked like it was moving. It was amazing. The only communication that I had was mind to mind. Okay? He would ask a question, I would hear it in my mind, I would answer it in my mind, and he would hear it. And he asked only one question. And he asked the same question over and over again at every stage of my life. Now, before we get in there, I have to digress a bit. I was raised Roman Catholic, you know? Oh boy, do I know how to stand in line. You know, we have more rules to follow. Yes. You know? I mean, if you had the nuns for 9 years and then you had the Jesuits for 9 years, you're so stuck on rules, you don't even know what the main event is. You lose sight of the overall objective as you're following your rules because they're self-sustaining. Well, hell, look. We used to laugh together in high school about how, as adolescent boys, we probably sinned 3 times before we even called the girl to ask her out. You know what I'm talking about. So, there was no way I was going to get to heaven, all right? I was that proverbial camel through the eye of a needle, all right? Because I was such a sinful guy. As we all were. I mean, that's what we were told we were, and we were. And sure enough, we lived up to expectations, you know? We smoked early, drank early. That's enough. So I never really thought I had a chance. Never thought I had a chance. And that's what's so surprising to me about the question he kept asking. It's the same one over and over again at every stage of your life, and it's very simply this. What did you do for your fellow man? Done, 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 done. Every time, every stage of your life. That's all that matters. It's what we're here for. Are we our brother's keeper?
You bet your ass. You want to get into heaven? You better take care of your brother. And you see your brother everywhere. For some of you Bible scholars, I think it was toward the end of his mission when Christ was asked, Rabbi, how do we attain eternal life? And he said, every time you saw me naked and clothed me, and every time you saw me hungry and fed me, and every time you saw me in prison and visited me, and blah, 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 blah. And they said, well, we never saw you that way, but if you, the least of my brethren, you did it to me. He wasn't kidding. He didn't have any time left. Jerusalem was beckoning. He knew the cross was waiting. And this question comes up, bang! He gave it the answer. I don't know why we have such a hard time believing it. He didn't say, make as much money as you can, and buy the biggest house and the best boat and the greatest car and the best supermodel, on and on and on. He said, no. Take care of your fellow man. So I'm sitting there, and he's asking me, at this stage in your life, what did you do for your fellow man? Well, the stage was about 10 or 11, and I completely forgot whether I did anything for my fellow man when I was 10 or 11. With that, one of the walls came alive, and there's my life on the wall, the film of me. I'm a crossing guard with the white belt. That's what I did for my fellow man when I was 10. Bang. As soon as I acknowledged it, the wall was blank again. And that happened a couple of other times when I didn't have an answer, but something came up. Now, I can remember, well, Sacred Heart Grammar School went to Mass and Communion every day, Monday through Friday. And the entire school would have to cross Gage Boulevard, or Gage Street, or whatever. And it was a pretty busy street for traffic, so I was one of the traffic guards there. And I took it seriously. I got real involved. I mean, if you were looking like you were coming, you were not stopping, I was going to stand in front of your car and bang on the car to get you to stop. The other guys didn't take it that seriously, and they kind of made a little fun of me and so on, but whatever. It wasn't the first or the last time that ever happened. But that's what I did for my fellow man when I was 10. It's that simple, folks, and that complex. Should you continue to give your money? Of course, give your money, absolutely. Make it work to help other people, that's great. But then don't turn around and treat your secretary like a piece of shit. Okay? Why don't you and your wife take, and this is advice I should have followed, why don't you take 15 minutes and jot down the 5 things you fight about the most and see if you can't agree that 2 of them are too many. Just get rid of them. Don't fight about those 2 things anymore. Hell with that. Got enough in the other 3. You can squeeze them under. It's all about how we treat our fellow man. That's why we're on earth. That's the purpose of life. Now, if we ever can replace the almighty dollar with caring about our fellow man, my sense is that we would have heaven on earth. My sense is that his kingdom would be complete. Anyway. The second time I was up there, it was a little longer, and 3 things happened regarding my original family. My brother suddenly was a part of this. My brother tried to suffocate me 7 times when I was small, and loved each event, laughed each time. And yeah, he was also a camp counselor at Loyola Academy, and he liked to identify some of the weakest kids and stand on their shoulders in the deep end until they freaked out. Now, both of these were attempted murder. And I'd never confronted him on it. somehow he was there, and I had to promise to confront him about that so that he would seek forgiveness and get that block out of his way. I got the clear message that he was being blocked from heaven because of those evil deeds. He didn't hear me. He said it was just fooling around. It was just kidding around. It was just, oh, you can't be serious. Oh, you can't be serious. Okay, don't go to confession. Don't see a priest. Don't get forgiven. Don't confess it. Don't say any prayers to God to forgive you. Just go ahead, but I gotta tell you, you ain't getting in. My mother, well, everybody's mother is wonderful, but my mother was so extraordinary. She was also the prioress of the Daughters of St. Francis de Sales. It's a third order group. There were two prioresses in the world, so she had from the Mississippi River to Jerusalem as her half of the world. When she lived with Dad in D.C., she brought 860 women together under the Daughters of St. Francis de Sales. She was amazing. Just amazing. And she would do anything. If someone was in the hospital and they hadn't been visited, and she would grab 6 other women and we're gonna go visit her, but no, you can't go up there. They say you can't. Well, the Spirit will provide. The Spirit will provide. And sure enough, it always did. And they went out and they did it. She was amazing. And I'm sure she's sitting on Francis de Sales' lap. Anyway, her name was Elizabeth. And the second time up, there suddenly became this female chant. It was all girls singing. But what they were doing was asking him if they could bring Evie out. Can we bring Evie out? Can we please have Evie? Come on. And each time he said, no, not yet. No, it's not the time. No. That had to be my mom. Meanwhile, the second time, when I was doing the life review, there was this little dog that was going back and forth in front of my feet, scruffling back and forth, sniffing the ground, etc., etc. And the entire cut on the back of the dog's head was my father's haircut. That was him. That was him. And, I thought, now here's a man, all right? I love him to death, all that good stuff, love the country, gave everything to the country, blah, 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 blah. But he also timed his ovations. Yeah. So he's pretty proud man. Here he is as a dog in heaven. That seemed to fit with me until I talked to a psychic in North Carolina who said, no, she went and met him, and it wasn't that he was being punished by being a dog. He knew you had to go back, so he was circling you to protect you for going back. And I questioned her a little bit more, and she said, listen, don't ask me, ask Norm. I said, Norm who? She said, Norm Gross. Nobody knew that my father's best friend all through law school and life was Norm Gross. Norm's wife was responsible for the Alberto DO5 campaign. Yeah, ad campaign. Yeah. He was a divorce lawyer. And she said, Norm and your father are standing together, helping you, ready to help you at any time. Wow. She had no idea who Norm Gross was. She didn't even know who my father was until I gave the talk. So, that's pretty neat. Coming back was the worst thing because you have 7 people's hands in your face. 2 people are trying to put the breathing mask, clamp that down on your face. There's a guy coming with a needle to your neck. There's another needle in your chest doing this, which I think was probably adrenaline. And all of them are so panic-stricken that you just absorb that panic. That panic just enters you. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, coming back from that. It's just, it doesn't last long. It's about 15 seconds or so of sheer, unadulterated panic, but it's there. It makes coming back tough. I have been spending 3 years, the better part of 3 years, trying to figure out what it is that is the work I am expected to do. I can't figure it out very well. I think, since I'm currently unemployed, I think I want to do poverty law. Maybe that would be the best thing. Street law, poverty law, homeless law, what have you. If any of you have any connections to poverty law centers or know of people who do, please stop and see me afterwards and let me know. So, I've actually had 3 opportunities in life. How am I changed and different afterwards? Gratitude. I've never spent a lot of my life feeling grateful or being grateful, but I sure do now. Oh my God. I'm grateful for everything. Married for 38 years, I am sure, down to my shoes, that I took my wife for granted for many, many years. And now that we're about to split up, it's clear that I did. So, grateful for her, grateful for my boys. We adopted both boys. We couldn't have kids. We went through 7 years of infertility testing. I could tell you some stories that would blow you away about it. But we got both boys at birth, both healthy boys at birth. They're now 24 and 25. One's on Broadway, and the other, thank you, Jesus, has just passed his physical for the Chicago Fire Department. So, good guys, good people, my buddies. Anyway, grateful as hell for them. Grateful for trees and birds, and I mean, I walk around and I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for Avatar, for crying out loud. Just saw it for the 3rd time last night. Anyway, very grateful. I really want to know what I'm supposed to be doing. I want to throw myself into it, whatever it may be. That was it. It happened that way both times. The exact same. People call me Gabe. You got more work to do. Blah, 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 blah. It was like literally turning on a TiVo and seeing a repeat of what you just saw. Both times it happened the same way. And both times I came back. I'm extraordinarily grateful. I'm grateful to all of you for listening this long. And I appreciate the opportunity to tell the tale one more time. I'm open for any questions.
I have 2 questions. You said that you had a wonderful group of beings welcoming you.
Oh, yeah.
Were they your family?
No, total
relatives?
strangers.
Just-
Total strangers. Total strangers. Lots of blondes.
Oh. And my,
You're dead, you're not dead.
my second question
That
is,
didn't come out right.
your dad was a dog, but did you have any pets that came and met you?
No.
Or did you see anybody's pets?
No pets at all. I didn't see the pets at all. I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah.
Could that group of people have been your soul group?
I don't know what you mean by soul group.
Well, my understanding is we belong to a group of, my understanding is, from what I've read, is that we belong to a group of people and we determine what we're gonna do when we come down here and this group of people help us do. And we have certain tasks to perform and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. I don't know. I sincerely don't know, which is stronger than just being a dummy. Sincerely not knowing is I really thought about it. I don't know a damn thing about that. I imagine that it could be, though. There's no reason why it couldn't be. It's just I never saw any of them before. Or if I hadn't recognized them. Yeah, that's...
If they recognized you.
They knew me completely.
It was like they were waiting on me, you know? Here he comes. Let's go. All right, Gabe, you told him? Yeah, okay, fine, come here. And then everybody threw their arms around. Yes?
Okay, I have a question. Because, and I hate to be skeptical,
Okay.
okay, because,
By all means.
but, you know, well, I had thought I had a near-death experience too, but I could say to myself, maybe it's just you were unconscious, you were dreaming, or maybe something else. I don't know if we really know if we were dreaming, you know, and this was coming from our imagination. You were drugged, obviously, from your operation.
Yes.
And I don't mean to put you down, because
No.
I think whatever we get from this experience that makes our life more positive is the best thing in the world.
Right.
But that's the part that I'm very skeptical about. You know, imagination versus unconsciousness versus, you know, actually going into some kind of whatever.
I think your skepticism is justified and totally natural. I think maybe it's a step in your own road. I don't know. My medical records say I flatlined. My medical records say I didn't respond to the electrical charges. My medical records say death.
But our brain cells can
So
go
I'm
on
going
for a
by
while.
that. I know.
You know.
Yeah, the brain stay alive for a while
Yeah.
after people die. Yes.
Cool.
But it was in the back of my mind. It was like, okay, all right, if there were 200, 250 people to greet me, where's everybody else? You know? Maybe they've gone back. Who knows? Who knows? What about all those people on the mountain going up and down? Do they have a place to go? Are they going to end up someplace where they then get recharged to fill another body? Oh, that's the other thing. Gotta tell you that. That's amazing. When I grew up, Catholics were believing that the soul was a little wispy thing that was inside your body. And when your body died, your soul rose up to heaven. As usual, the church has part of the message, but only part. This is a wrapper. This is a wrapper. That's all it is. Okay? Your consciousness and all that makes you you is your soul. And that's what goes. Okay? So, I was fully conscious. I knew what was happening. I was aware of what was happening. I knew I was dead. I knew we were in the light, etc., etc., etc. I was still me. I wasn't fat, chubby Irish me, but I was still me. And that's just so cool to me. That just makes me feel so much better because, okay, well, it just does, I guess. Go ahead.
So in this life review, and you have to kind of come up with what you did good for the rest of humanity, is it like every 2 years you gotta do something? Every 5 years? What are the rules here?
Yeah, I don't think there were really any rules. I think it was just, I don't know, maybe he said, what did you do for your fellow man when you were 12 or 13 or 14? Maybe it was every year, I don't know. I guess I've forgotten that, if I did know at the time. But I just knew that it took quite a while, and it was always the same question. Always the same question. Yes?
Was there any message about this light or anything like that? The light, you were talking about the
Any
light.
message about the light?
Yeah, what context are you using the light for? I mean, what's your meaning of light? I'm confused about the light. You're
Yeah.
using the word light.
The light was God, essentially. The light is God. God is light. And he was that sustaining light there. Or she was that sustaining light.
And that's what fed you? Or that fed you? Or
Yeah, you knew it could sustain you. Feeding, that has such a context of chewing and swallowing and digesting and belching and all that good stuff. Well, Irish belch all the time. We're always drinking. But no, it was you almost picked it up through your pores. It was almost Yeah, I mean, you just knew you'd be fine. You never need to eat again, ever. Just living the life.
Special.
It actually felt like home.
Love. Liquid love.
Yeah, exactly, yes. Michael. Pardon me.
Having reached the light, you found out what your purpose was. For the rest of us here on earth, a lot of times, ego seems to be unaware and go down the path and influenced by ego. Do you have any advice or any steps of people, of the rest of us who are here on earth, how we get past the ego and find out what the true purpose and direction for our life should be?
That's a great question. You know, you're tempting me to become a preacher. You know, I always thought if I won the lottery, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to form a foundation that would reinvest the money, but whatever amount of money it made every year, I'd just give it away. And just kind of challenge this whole money is everything kind of society we live in by giving it away, literally giving it away to people that needed it. You know, we always read about a family who's homeless after a fire, whatever, something like that. Just here's a check, go. Go to the Hyatt, you know, and order room service, champagne. Okay. I always thought that that would be a cool thing to do, and make it all anonymous, all right? So that it would have none of me in it. And you know, we'd have portraits of our founders, and they would have questions for faces and stuff. Michael, I'm trying hard to come up with a better answer because it was such a good question. I just think we got to take care of our fellow man without looking for a pat on the back, or with our own pat on our own back being sufficient for us. Maybe that's part of it. But I think if you really go all out to help your fellow man, I don't think God has a problem with you being a little proud of that. That's okay. I mean, I think Jimmy, what was his name, the president that saw the rabbit? Carter. I think Jimmy Carter should have a real reasonable sense of pride in all the houses he's built for the homeless. You know? God bless him. God bless the man. You know, I'd love to go do that for a while. I keep thinking, maybe I do need to go do that for a while. Drop the suit, drop the lawyer, drop all the bullshit and go. Sorry. Yes.
I'm curious about your brother that,
Yep.
yeah, that did those things to you. Is he in the next world or is he still alive?
He's still alive.
Okay, so it was physically you tried to get him to own up to what he did, but he couldn't.
Right. I took him for dinner at Hackney's on Harm. I did. We both loved it. Yeah, he didn't want to listen.
Did you say that you spent 19 years as a psychiatric nurse?
Social worker.
Social worker?
Yeah.
Could you tell me how that experience informed what happened to you, do you think? And was that considered helping your fellow man?
Yes. Yeah, I believe that was helping my fellow man. I worked for an organization called Thresholds. Maybe some of you know about it. I started off there as their vocational coordinator. And then I went to the South Branch at 47th and Halsted as the clinical director, and then the assistant director, and then the director. Right. Thresholds was an amazing experience because they looked for staff who wanted to make a difference in other people's lives. Certainly everybody had to be intelligent, so there had to be a degree of some sort. But the doctors, psychiatrists, and so on, they came to the center and medicated people and that kind of stuff, but they didn't do the counseling. We did the counseling. And every administrator of thresholds, such as myself, still carried a caseload, so that you always knew how the organization was really working. When I went down there, there was a budget of about $385,000. We were serving maybe 600 people a year. We had 18 staff. And when I left 8 years later, we had a budget over $6 million, 49 staff. We had 3 group homes and 54 apartments in the independent living program. We had an alternative high school accredited by North Central Commission. And we had 186 employers that we worked with every day, who hired our people based on 3 hours a week to start with, and kept adding hours till they were full-time, with the deal that once they were full-time for 7 months straight, they were automatically hired. And all of the employers bought into that. Now, we also wrote grants to the state to get vehicles and supervisors, so that the supervisor would be trained by the business and by us in our different capacities, and then they would crew up the group to work that night, drive to the facility, work, drive back, etc. So we were always there, we were always on time, every one of our workers. Now, where was there? Well, we stocked, fronted, faced, shelved, and dusted all 14 bays of the commissary at Great Lakes Naval Training Station from 47th and Halsted. And we did that every night, okay? And my best obsessive compulsive diagnosed people, we put on the cosmetics app. They were great. They were great.
Do you ever meditate? I feel like, for me, meditation is the place I get the closest to this kind of experience, this total love.
Meditation, no. The closest I get is the rosary, and I do say that frequently.
Form of meditation.
It is a form of meditation. Yeah, it's the beads and the back and the forth and all that stuff. I really believe in that because when my mother had her open heart, it happens in 1% of open heart operations. The heart gets too swollen for the chest to close for 72 hours. So, 72 hours, she was wide open. And I was sitting there praying the rosary with 800 women that showed up in droves and who knelt in the hallway all the way down past the elevators. The doctors were coming out going, what the hell is this? Yeah, they were all there. Oh, man. And they wouldn't move, and they wouldn't leave till they got a progress report. 56 days I was with her. Yeah. Finally got her back to Rush. She wanted to be home for Christmas, and we got her back to Rush from Virginia. She was out visiting my sister when she slipped and fell and broke her hip. The guy gave her too much plasma, and she had a quadruple bypass. So she's ended up with tachycardia, and we're at Rush where they oblate the heart to stop the tachycardia. As you know, that's surface beating of the heart real fast, surface electrical discharge. And Peg and I, my wife and I, were trading off nights visiting. Peggy came home the night before she died, and she looked at me and she said, I don't know, Chris, I don't know. I don't know if she's gonna make it. She just looks so tired, so beat up. I don't think she can do any more tests. And in fact, they told me they were postponing them for 48 hours. So I went in the next night, we had our visit, and I kissed her goodbye, and I was about 10 feet down the hallway when, Chris, come quickly. I thought, oh God, tachycardia again. Because I had seen that, and it just, her throat was just, oh, it was just amazing to witness that. So I came busting into the room. She goes, no, I'm okay. I said, what, Ma? She said, I just wanted to tell you that all my life, you've been my salvation. That was the last word she spoke, because she was dead 2 hours later. So yeah, I am blessed. I have so much to be grateful for. I have a mother to be grateful for. I'm grateful she lived long enough to give me that blessing for the rest of my life. I'm sorry, I'm getting preachy again. I'm sorry. Let's go back to questions. Yes.
When you had the life
When you were having the life review with Jesus on the mound, if you will, and he was showing you the pictures, various stages of your life, this seems like, to me, pretty important. I want to go back to that. Was there any sense of intention when you were being shown that? In other words, what I'm trying to get at is, you know, you're seeing in various stages of your life if you were doing right or not. So if there were stages where you weren't doing right, what did that mean? Or do you feel that your intention, you never showed that you were not? You always showed in the small ways that you were.
Right.
Okay,
That's
so
what he was concerned with.
he was only concerned with
Only
that.
concerned with the positive, yeah.
So
I mean, there's plenty of negative, you know.
you saw that
I was an
too.
early swearer, early smoker.
You saw those too.
They weren't up there.
Oh, you were
No,
shown the good.
The only time you saw something up there was when I was stuck.
Did everybody hear the question? What about the negatives? Yeah. The only time the stuff was up on the wall is if I was stuck and couldn't remember. Then bang, it would come up. There'd be something that I was doing for someone. That's it. He really doesn't care about the negatives. That's where the church is so wrong. He's not there, you know, judging. I got the clear understanding there. I should have said this earlier. Parts keep coming back. I got the clear understanding that giving birth is enough. Every mother is in heaven. What more could you give your fellow man but life? Huh? What more could you do for your fellow man but to give him life? So I just think every mother's in. You guys are all in. Don't worry about it. So much for destiny, right? Body and destiny. What?
And do you feel that for you, he was showing you those scenes because for you, you were coming back and you had more to do? Or do you think that all of us will face that same question?
Yes, all of us will face that same question, and it was encouraging. It was absolutely encouraging. Because when I couldn't think of something, I was like really worried. It was like, oh God, I'm gonna go to hell. You know. And then he put it on the wall. He says, hey dummy, look. And I said, now again, this is all mind to mind. And then I would just say, you mean the silly crossing guard stuff? And I got an affirmative, yes, of course. So that, I think we all face that, and I think it's all going to be positive. And the more we do, the better it's going to be. But I think we're all intended for paradise. I really, really do. Every one of us is intended to be there. Every one of us is intended to go home and back to the light. Yeah.
Do you wear a do not resuscitate badge around your neck now?
I don't want to force you.
Okay, Chris, you seems quite comfortable talking about this.
Uh-huh.
So how was the first time?
How was the what?
First time you were telling this to the people.
Yeah. No, it hasn't gone well very often. A lot of people think that I am a friend. My best friend, we were at his home for a weekend in Charleston, South Carolina, and he's got a home on 12 and a half acres, don't you know? And all the surrounding neighbors have 20 acres or more. And they're all here for the dinner, and Jerry says, Chris, tell your story. So I told the story. I told the story, and Jerry's response, he looked at his wife and said, he didn't miss one fact. It was all the same each time. Perfect. I was like, well, are you expecting me to miss something here? This is how this happened. Scared the living crap out of me, most of it. So I was paying real attention. Yeah, so No, it hasn't gone over very well. And as you'll see in all the literature about near death, spouses have a very hard time. And that's why we're divorcing after 38 years.
Can you talk about this?
So
just a
sad
minute?
about that.
Can you
I am
talk-
so sad about
Can you talk about that? Your wife? What's her major problem?
And what are you gonna do? You're gonna go tell all these people all against me, you're there for them, you haven't done shit, you haven't gone anywhere, you haven't done anything for the poor, what the hell are you talking about? You're just a big...
No.
How's that?
You know, I hear you talk about being raised as a Catholic and you know, going to Catholic school and all that. And I'm not sure that you were a terribly spiritual or a spiritual person before. You were.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but my question is, since your experience, then, has it changed your practice in it? Has it really deepened? Well, I imagine it has, but in what ways has it deepened your practice towards faith?
On the faith scale, probably not much. If anything, I probably go to church less now, although I pray a lot more. Back to that meditation question. On the faith, on the people basis, I always prided myself on a good listener, as a good listener, and of course I was professionally trained to listen, psychiatric work. And I've redoubled those efforts. I listen. My son says I'm an empathic. And I asked him what that meant. He said, well, you just empathize with everyone. And yeah, I did. I got a call from a woman who was 78 years old. Her husband had died 60 days earlier, so now instead of 2 Social Security checks, she was getting 1. And the mortgage was more than 1 check could cover, so the bank was foreclosing on the home. She had just come from a nursing home herself, being there for 40 days after breast surgery, and she was on 24 hours oxygen, and the electric company was shutting off the electricity. Where do you start? So yeah, I used to teach my students that feelings are facts, and that all the girls would know that right away because they'd known that all their lives, but the guys needed some work on that because the guys don't believe feelings are facts. Guys don't believe feelings. In fact, that's why they're becoming lawyers. They don't have any feelings. You know? Or they don't trust their feelings, that's for damn sure. There you go. It's even more important to me now. It's even more obvious to me now. So anyway, I mean, first thing I did is call ComEd, Human Resources. I knew a person over there. Said, you're not going to do this to this lady, are you? And he said, we didn't even know we were. Yeah, but if we are, we aren't. We're not going to do it. Okay, great. You know, then I called the bank and said, you know, you can't do this. You got to wait. You got to find out. So everybody took a step back. But I still wonder how she's doing. I still worry about her. You know, really, Peggy's kind of right, because I have kind of put my head under the sand with all this. Yes, I tell the story. This is the second group, the first being the National Convention. This is the second group I've spoken to about this. And I tell all my friends and family and anybody who will listen long enough or stand still long enough. But I really have put my head underground with this. She's right.
The experience you described is Christian in nature. And I wondered if you had any sense of other faiths coming together.
The experience I'm talking about has a decidedly Christian flavor. And was there anything about any other faiths coming together? Not in my immediate experience, no. I'm sure that's true though. I just don't think it matters. None of that matters. It's just how you treat your fellow man.
The Bible sort of alludes that when people watch Christ speak, they could hear in their own language and see what they wanted to see. And I was just wondering if you had a sense that possibly a Muslim would have seen Muhammad, and so maybe it was just an individual thing.
I'm sure. Yes. Microphone. I'm sure. Oh. Did you want the microphone because you wanted my answer to that? Because you didn't hear? Oh, okay. My answer to that was absolutely, sure. I would think so. I would think a Muslim would see Muhammad there. I would think that you might see Abraham. You know, whatever authority there is. So many. Gabe? No. No. Gabe left after we got there. As soon as we got there, Gabe was gone. Yeah, he's the delivery man. He's the pizza boy. The pizza boy of heaven.
I did want to say, don't be so hard on yourself about, this period of time, because it takes a little while to realize what you're passionate about, what you really want to do, what your strengths are, and so there's always a time of when you're really, really struggling and looking for your real soul purpose. It takes some time. At least that's from my experience. And also, I just lost a dear pet a couple of months ago. And so I was just wondering, did you, in your life review, did you ever do anything nice to an animal and Jesus thought that was okay?
Yeah. That needs to count.
Yeah, does that count?
No, it wasn't in my life review. But I've had dogs all my life. And, yeah, we didn't get that far. I just wasn't there that long, really. Yes. I'm sorry.
One of my questions was partially answered already in terms of you see what your culture has brought you up to be, to see. So that you're seeing the purple of the casket lid was possibly a projection. Seeing the top of your casket lid, the purple, was possibly a part of the projection. I'm trying to get this through my mind as to how you feel all this took place. Is that what you say? That it's, whatever your basic nature is, that's the kind of experience you will have in the...
I don't know. I don't know. It's just, this was my experience.
She's not giving a microphone. The other question I had was, isn't there a point of time where there's tremendous damage after you flatlined? And
Yes.
you were 14 minutes, so
It's
what
11
is the
minutes,
time?
actually.
So what, did you have damage? I mean, what
I
did
think
they
so.
say?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's affected the law practice a little bit.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, because I can always look it up again, But no, I do feel some memory loss, in the sense of some memory loss, yes.
My feeling, and something that you had experienced you're talking about the memory loss. I believe that God would spare you that memory loss if this was a out-of-body experience. I myself, this young lady over here that said that no, she's gone. She's gone. I guess she was a little skeptical still about this out-of-body experience. When I had my daughter, it'll be 42 years the end of this month, we also had a son. And he was 2.5 years old at the time. And all I could think about was not the baby that I was having, but
The baby you were leaving.
yes, the baby that I was leaving, and I could feel myself going off the table. But at no time did I ever say, "Oh, please, God, don't do this to me." He's only a baby. He's just a child. But at no time did I ever experience light. But I felt that I could feel myself leaving my body.
Wow.
But I feel that I was given too much medications to try to keep the pain down. I think that when you have heart surgery and they're working on you with your heart, I think they do minimal as far as medications to keep you out, because they want to watch everything, monitor everything so closely. So I believe that out of all the speakers that I've ever seen here, you are the best.
Oh, thanks. Thanks so much. About that medicine, my boys would beg to differ. I spent, after I came back, I spent the next, I think, 72 hours just crazy in, ICU. Just nuts. I thought I was moving carpets with my eyes. At one point, the L train goes by. Those were jet aircraft approaching, and the raindrops were the bullets. I was just out of my mind for 2.5 days. They called it ICU sickness or ICU something. Yeah, delirium. Yeah. Well, the experience was awesome. Yeah, and I kept screaming at my younger son to run 62 counter trap. Don't ask me.
I believe you stopped hearing with your ears and began to hear with your heart.
This is my scientific self asking you a question, Chris, since you're an eyewitness. You describe the after-death experience as a timeless realm, but yet everyone who gives these accounts, yours included, talks about a sequence of things happening. This happens, then this, then this, then this. This suggests time because you have duration and you have things happening in sequence. So how does that jive? How can you have sequential things happening without time? And would it be similar to like the way we experience time in, like, say, the dream state? Or how would it be different?
I don't know how we experience time for the dream state. What I would suggest to you is that once you're back in the world of time, you use the events in a sequential manner, thinking about them. You probably also think about them from left to right, because that's how we're trained to read. And you describe them in a sequential manner as a means of remembering, because you're back in the time mode here. Okay? And anybody who's training anybody to speak in front of a jury, and I've trained a lot of people that way, your story has to have a theme, and the theme has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay? And then you harp on the end, ask for your relief, shut up, and sit down. Okay? Why? Because juries like to hear a story from beginning to middle to end. That's how we think here. Yeah. So that's why I would describe it that way, I think. Now maybe that's too self-forgiving. I don't think there is a crisis between science and God. I really do, and theology. Especially after this. I mean, scientists care more about their fellow man than many other people. They dedicate their whole lives to helping their fellow man, you know? So, I mean, my God. So they're going to go to heaven like that. Many of them, you know, that have worked that hard. Is there a hell? I didn't see one.
I didn't see that.
I can't say there is one, from my experience.
You mentioned your brother.
Yeah.
That's blocking you
From getting to heaven, yeah.
So where is he going to?
I think he'll probably end up in purgatory or in hell. He's too old to end up in limbo, you know, they don't let anybody in limbo. No, I'm sorry. I'm not making fun of you, I just think the whole thing is funny. But, no, I think the truly evil are in hell. I think Hitler's in hell. I think Mussolini's in hell. I think, yeah, he ought to be. Yeah, I think there's,
You know, Blagojevich is heading to hell. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. That's wrong, I beat it too. But no, I didn't see one. And that kind of makes me believe we're all intended for the best.
How can we make sure there is a hell or heaven? Because I do not met anybody who die and come back and tell us what happened there.
You just did.
Really?
You just did. Yeah. I'm sort of like Bilbo Baggins. Does everybody remember Bilbo from the Ring trilogy? Yeah. Well, the book he wrote was subtitled There and Back Again. Yeah. Sort of like Bilbo.
Well, you said you were questioning and kind of seeking your life's purpose. Yeah, and from my experience, I wanted to find out what my life purpose was too. Especially after reading all the books that people have their life purpose. But I think about the confusion that some of the people when she first came back, and also that as I look at my own, I feel like along the way I'm getting prepared to do, I might get a glimpse of my life purpose here and there, but I feel like I get prepared inside first for what it is that I'm really supposed to be doing.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of synchronistic events that have been leading me all in the same direction. A lot of life detours get there, but you get there.
So I should spend a little more time with the internal landscape, I think is what you're saying, inside me. Make the inside of me better so I know where I'm going.
It just happens.
It just happens. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I appreciate being here today to hear this experience. And I am not a skeptic. I'm a believer. And I also believe that the good Lord is getting you ready to continue the mission of feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and helping those who cannot help themselves. God bless you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Please pray for me. Please. Any other questions?
It's okay. Just ask the question. It's all right.
You mentioned during your life review that nothing bad was shown. So when I think about your brother and what his life was like, that makes me wonder what's going to be shown for his life review. And if you had a sense, you mentioned briefly your sense about where he would be. If you had ever thought about his life review.
I certainly don't know and don't want to judge. I think we can be forgiven. I believe we can be forgiven in an instant. And Jeff can be forgiven in an instant if he seeks it. What was clear to me is that, and maybe it was Mom once again, because she always was after me to do something. Please go see Jeff, and please ask him to do this. Please ask him to call his sister. That kind of stuff. So maybe it was her that just planted this idea in my head. But I knew I had to get to him right away. I was searching for the work I had to do, and it kept coming up, see Jeff, see Jeff, see Jeff, and it was like, okay, all right, let's go get this done right now. And we did it, and he didn't listen, and that's okay. And I didn't harp. It's not in me to harp. I'm nothing that special. Yeah, he's just much bigger than me and 5 years older, and You know, he had a relationship with death. My father left the family the minute I was born. He saw me born in his flight clothes, flight jacket and flight pants and boots, whatever. Because he left for the Korean War right then and there. So I never knew him. And of course, here I am, the major love interest of this beautiful woman, and 22 months later, he strolls back in. And she drops me like a hot potato. What the hell? Anyway, Jeff had a different relationship with Dad, and Jeff was a career officer in the Air Force, and a great engineer. But he just a little taken away with how strong he was when he was a teenager.
Chris, during your life review, you mentioned the dog, and possibly that was your dad, and you made a comment about that he was going to protect me. And I want to know, protect you from what? Was it from your journey back into your body?
Yes.
Basically?
Yes.
Okay.
I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
About Gabriel. You said that you didn't try, have you ever tried to contact Gabriel again?
No, I never have.
Haven't tried. And if I was had your experience, I'd probably,
You know, it's a good idea. It's a great idea. And I never even thought of it, but no, I haven't.
Yeah, I had a near-death experience. I actually sent my angel away and said I wanted to do it on my own.
Wow.
Can you imagine the nerve? After having my life saved, I sent him away.
Talk about liberating.
I'm a little independent, but so I was curious about that because it was suggested to me to try to reestablish contact. It takes a lot of humility, but when somebody doesn't like that, I was thinking with Gabriel.
You could help me figure out what is the work.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying right now. Okay, so you found out that who you really are never ended.
Right.
Correct? It was just a body thing.
Right.
So you as an identity are immortal.
Yes.
Correct.
Always.
Yes.
Yep.
Gabriel was there with you now. Gabriel is here with you now. So the prayer is, please direct my word, thought, and act and deed, so that I may serve you better. And just take that to Gabriel. I mean, that's kind of what I did.
Please direct my act, thought, word, and deed.
Yeah, act.
Serve you better.
Right, those four things.
Thought, word, and deed.
And the other part was your brother. I think you were to forgive him unconditionally.
Oh, I forgive.
You did, good.
Yeah, and I told
Excellent.
him that. I
Good.
said, I forgive you completely. Yes.
Yeah.
But
That
I
frees
know, I
you.
know the other kids hasn't. Because at one point Jeff sought a job from him.
Microphone.
I know the other kid has not forgiven Jeff, and the way I know that is that after Jeff left the military, he was unemployed and he was seeking a job, and he applied for a job at the company owned by this kid. Although he didn't know that. And the kid invited him for lunch at the executive dining room, etc. And they're having lunch and blah, 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 blah. And Jeff is just playing the game, the interview game as best he can. And I guess it came down to it, and the kid looked at him and said, I was that kid in the swimming pool, and I wouldn't hire you if you were the last man alive. And I asked you to lunch here today so I could have the satisfaction of looking you in the eye and telling you, all right. Fuck you.
What did Jeff say?
Oh, Jeff thought he was a little weird. He was weird, yeah.
I too am very thankful for you and appreciate you sharing your story. You've mentioned a few folks, your friend, your wife. I'm curious how your experience and your story has affected your boys and your feelings on that.
Oh, good question. Good question. Well, Tom, really never told this story publicly, but maybe it's worthwhile. Maybe this is a group that would enjoy it. Not having children was making my life not work. And certainly making Peggy's life not work. She just had miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. One while wearing white pants and speaking to a room full of 1,200 people. Yeah. Oh God, poor Peg. Anyway, it was making my life not work. My life just wasn't working. And I'd always read everything that Thomas Merton had written. He's a Trappist monk who's kind of a mystic guy, got very involved in uniting Asian monasticism and Western monasticism before he died. Died in a very strange way and supposedly has appeared a number of times to different people. But in any case, I went and did a self-guided 7-day retreat at Gethsemane Monastery in Kentucky. And that was after a 2-week-long kind of est seminar. I was journaling at the time, and I was up journaling at the monastery, and I suddenly became very clear that God had children for me from the beginning of time, and if I could just back my ass out of the way, he would deliver the children. Get yourself out of the process. Now, where was I in the process? I was into making a child. I was into my big, strong seed, don't you know? So, I mean, God gave me the clear message, back off. I am the Lord and giver of life, and you are not. And I did, backed off. I said, Peg, we got to adopt. We started doing the papers. Less than 30 days later, well, as you go along and you do the different, you write your life up for people. You have to write all about who you are so that these 15-year-olds can decide whether you're okay enough to have their child. Of course, we were 35 and 36, you know, and I'm dyeing my hair. Frivolous fawn. God damn it. Anyway, so you're writing up all these things. All right. Oh, after writing that stuff up, there's not much more left to do. And so we both decided to just increase our network. So Peggy went and joined this group of people that was going to do a grammar school reunion at Ascension Church in Oak Park. And on that panel, there was an old friend of hers who left high school. They were all at Trinity together. She left high school in junior year, and Peggy never saw her again. Anyway, she's on the board of this thing, and Peggy is. And Peggy's telling everybody how we want to be parents and all that kind of stuff. So this woman says to Peggy, why don't you come over to my house for brunch, 11 o'clock, Saturday. Fine. Peggy goes over. The woman says, I had a baby in junior year of high school. I gave it up for adoption, and it's the single thing that is making my life not work. Please don't do this to another mother and another child. Don't adopt. I said, well, everybody's in tears. Everybody's crying, and the doorbell rings, and it's this woman's next door neighbor who always has coffee at 11 with her every Saturday, who walks in, what's this, go through the whole story. She says, oh my God, I was just down, I was a legal secretary, I was just at my last boss's office to get his letter of recommendation to carry it to the new guy, and while I'm there, he said, if I know of anybody that is doing an adoption, his best client's daughter just gave birth, and that's my son Tom.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
Wow.
In a meeting where one is telling the other, don't do this, the neighbor comes in, here's the child. In high school, in senior year, all the business about being a cool jock kind of melted into nothing. And I had a friend, Quint, who was in the band. He was a band nerd, I was a football jock, so you never met. But we started doubling in junior year. We got real close. We had a wonderful friendship in senior year. And then, I go off to the Air Force Academy, and he goes to, Elmhurst College, I don't know where it was. But we just lost a sense of one another. And suddenly, I go to try to increase my network of people. I go try to raise money for Loyola Academy. You talk about Coles to Newcastle.
But there I am, and I got the list, and there's Quint's name and number, so I called him. We got together a couple of times. He and his wife, Debbie, had 2 daughters. They were trying to get pregnant with a third. Debbie was born with 1 ovary. So the doctor was saying, we don't think it's a good idea for you to have another baby. So they decided they would try to adopt. They talked to her uncle, who was an adoption specialist. He said, I'll get a baby for you right away, and he started working on it. Well, just before Easter of that year, Debbie went in for an examination and turned up pregnant with her 3rd daughter. And at Easter dinner, her uncle came in and said, I've got a child for you, and that's my son, Pat. Yeah. Isn't that awesome? I'm so blessed. I talk about being grateful. Oh my God, what about, I should just pound my breast and be grateful the rest of my life, I guess, because they are just such wonderful people. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for coming. What a treat. We are so blessed here.